Hey, what's up? Today we're going to talk about CSS, which is how you can style a website, and this is part 2 of a 3-part series wherein I teach you to code from zero experience. So let's get started. Alright, so here we left off last time. We had Git installed on our Windows computer, and we used Notepad to open a file we just made called index.html. So all we wrote in that file was hello world. And then we just opened that file using File Explorer, which in turn opened it using Edge, which is Windows default web browser. So let's do that again. There you go. At the top, instead of a www, you'll see a file path to this file, and it says hello world. All right. So today, what we're going to do is continue with this example. Eventually, we're going to get to something like this. I showed my personal website last time. If you go to projects/dogs/index.html, you'll get this neat little doggo quiz website. So basically, this website, all it took was some HTML files, a couple, like one CSS file, which we'll make today, and a JavaScript file, which will be in the next video. So subscribe for that one. Basically, if you just click a few buttons answering what you would like about your life, it will suggest to you the best dog and will show you a random picture of that dog breed from an API that we will use. So let's get started. Okay, so let's make a CSS file really quick. And you'll open up the terminal and you'll just do the same command that we use for index.html. It's called touch. So touch, and we'll call it style.css and hit enter. Okay, so now if we do ls to list, we'll see there's a style file there. We can use Notepad again. Notepad style.css, and we're going to run this in the background so that our terminal can still run without being hung up on this style CSS. So just put and. You'll notice that there's a little number there that says 417. That's basically the process ID wherein Notepad is running to open style.css for us. But it frees up the terminal so that we can keep using it for things. And then let's say we want to be done with Notepad. I mean, we could just click this X up here, or a fancy computer way of doing it is you list the jobs, you'll see one is running, and you'll kill %1, which kills that job running Notepad. So you notice it's gone. So let's just open it back up again, and here we go. So for style, really, it comes down to something called classes. So you'll use classes a lot in computer programming. Basically, it's a grouping of properties and functionality into one thing, a class. For the purposes of CSS, we're going to group index elements into certain classes. So basically, like in this doggo quiz website, all right, let's go back. We have the title, and it's a really big font, and we can use a class to make that really big font. Or let's say we have these little buttons, and you can make them different colors or different sizes and stuff. Depending on what you want, you could have a class for like big button and you make it huge, or you could have a class for like small button or something like that. So let's go to our style page, or style.css file, to start making a class. Okay, so in our style.css file, I'm just gonna paste this little snippet here. So essentially, we're telling the website that in the body, which is like the main part of the website, we're going to want to use these following style guides. So we'll just have one for right now. It's background color, and we're going to make the background color blue. So let's go quickly to our index file and just click it. You'll notice it's not blue yet. So the way we make it blue, basically the way we tell that index.html file to use this style.css file is something called an includes. So let's open up that index.html file. Okay, so here we are. We're in the index.html file. It's not very structured like most HTML files. Let's just peek at one that's really an actual HTML file, like out there in production, in the world. One way you can do that is inspect. So you right click on the website, any website, and you just click inspect. It will start to show you the HTML behind the scenes. So like the first line of this HTML file is this doc type HTML, which we have not included in our index, but we should probably do that. As well as there's this section called head, which is where we're going to link our style sheet just like this. And then there's the main section body, which is where we put all the things of our website. So let's start out by just copying this one here. Here, let's just start to write this in. So Garrett, you're going to get used to all these funny symbols on your keyboard when you program. So like the exclamation mark, that's like second nature at this point. Doc type, HTML, end caret, save, and then let's start HTML. And you'll notice that there's this closing HTML at the end of the file. So we're going to add that now so we don't forget HTML. And then let's take this and put it in the middle of this HTML. For now, I guess we should add in the head. So you'll notice that the head is like indented a bit. That's usually good practice. So I just click tab, head, and then let's do that again, head. And then here is where we're gonna put our style sheet reference. So let's just see what it's like. Really, in computer programming, you're rarely doing something novel. You can usually just copy paste from different sources, but the real skill comes from knowing what to copy paste where exactly, which takes some time, but you will get there for sure. We'll get there together. So style sheet, and then href is going to be the same, actually, style.css. That's the same file name we used. And then let's do body, and then close that body tag. And then in here, we'll just put the hello world, okay? And we'll indent there, save. Okay, so let's just double check. We've made this an HTML file officially, labeled it with the HTML tag. In the head, we have referenced our style sheet, and we just gave the path style.css. Let's double check that that's the case. Sorry, ls. Yes, style.css, and we put in a body, and all our body is right now is just hello world. So let's save and then open up this file again. Boom, you see how it's blue? It's a really ugly blue, but this is how you make a style for your website. And yes, it takes time. Definitely it's the more artistic part of computer programming. Let's change that up a bit so our eyes don't bleed. Let's look for soft blue CSS color. I don't know, we'll just use this random hex. So I'll talk about color in computers in another video, but basically what it comes down to is numbers, and to computers you can use letters and numbers to represent numbers. So we'll just put in this hex code and see what it does to our website. Okay, nothing. I think there's something special that we have to do. Let's just check it out. CSS hex color. So there we go. We have to put a little pound sign before it. So let's open up style again and put a little pound sign there. And let's try again to open up our file. I guess instead of opening it up, we could just refresh each time. Here, like, let's refresh this. Refresh, boom, it's changed. Okay, so that's a little bit easier on the eyes. Sweet. Let's start to flesh out kind of the main part of the website, like the title, the little intro and stuff like that. So if we just go to the body section here, we're gonna do something called make a div, which is kind of like an overarching theme in web development, because a div is just kind of like a grouping of things. And so it's like a very generic term. It's like just a box, I guess. So we'll just do that. And so here, let's go back to index. We'll go body and start a div. And we also need to close the div before we go on, just so we don't forget. So let's look more closely at this website. Okay, so expand this. We see the doggo quiz is a H1, which basically means header 1. And header 1 is like the biggest size header. So we can put hello world in that header as well. So let's check it out. Index here. Okay, H1, we'll just say hello world. I guess there's a comma actually. Hello world, and close the H1 header. And let's just close this. And we will now go to our website. Let's close these tabs and refresh that. Okay, so it's a little bit bigger, but it's not centered. So how do we center that? Well, if you look here, this div has an ID attached to it, which is basically just an identification. It can be anything. We've called it main in this case. So let's just say, hey, we'll do the same thing here. ID equals, main. Okay, and then, sorry, I'm using a Mac to use a Windows computer, so the keyboard shortcuts are just a little bit different. ID main, and so that alone won't center our title. What we actually have to do is look at the style. So if you look, there's this pound sign and then main, and then you see all these different style guides in there. So we're gonna need to use those same things. So let's open up our style page and let's start copy pasting. And I'll explain as I go. So pound, that's a special character when you use CSS. It means ID. So like instead of a class, so we could do a ID, instead of ID, we just would give like class equals main. And then in our style guide, instead of a pound, we would use dot main and versus pound main. So pound main, that's for an ID if you're using ID. And then dot main, that's using class. And you may just want to, depending on how you design your website, if you want to be able to like impose the same style on a lot of different things, that's probably better to be a class. Versus like if you just have one thing that you're trying to style on your website, I mean, an ID is fine. So we'll do ID just because we don't have that many things to style. So we're going to style our main div, and we're going to use these same guidelines. So like width, we'll just do 60%. And yes, put a semicolon at the end. Lots of pain have come from forgetting a semicolon in computer programming, like in the description, but like the video if this ever happened to you. So width is 60%. Let's see, padding. Okay, so padding is, if you notice when I hover my mouse over padding, do you see how that little green shows up over the doggo quiz blue stuff? So padding is like inside of a div, how much room do you want from the walls of white space? So basically just how much room do you want to guarantee there will be within that div? And then margin is on the outside of the div. How much room do you want to ensure is outside of the div? So for us, when we put width 60% and the margin is auto, that will center it for us. So let's do that same thing. So let's go to our style. Width is 60%. Margin is auto, and save. And now if we go back to our website, refresh, boom, it's not centered. Okay, I'm not sure why exactly. Let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing here? Padding, overflow. Div has some, text align center. Maybe we should do that as well. So let's try that one. Style, background color, whoops. Okay, text align center. Okay, save. Let's go back. See if that works. Now it's centered. Okay, so yep, turns out we also needed to text align the center. And now let's just inspect this website too, for fun, I guess. And so you'll see we have that H1 there, and it's part of the div, and the blue part is the div. So yeah, we kind of have started out to make this same structure. Okay, so let's continue this. I'll put in the video like a timestamp where you can jump to kind of watch when we get to this point. I will make the, we made the title. Let's make the questions and the buttons really quick. So if you go to your index and let's inspect this one real quick. So we have the doggo quiz div, and then we have a div inside of a div. And that div is where we've put the questions. And we've made a class that says, hey, for every question div, do some certain styling. So let's do that same thing in our index file. So we have the h1, and then we need to make a div, and we'll give it class. And I also forgot to make this ID. I think that might be why it wasn't centered before. But anyways, for this other div, we're gonna make it a class, and we're gonna say it's equal to the question class, okay? So let's make sure we close that div, okay? And then inside, I guess I forgot to make the inner div, but I think we'll be fine. So we'll make a question div. So inside the question div, we have like a little header there, so we can say that. Let's do that. Okay, so h5 question 1, or we'll just say get doggo, because we're gonna have a button that just gets you a picture of a random dog. So let's just say get doggo, and then we'll just close that header. And we have answers and we have like buttons, but let's like scroll down to the bottom, because really we want this button here, this fancy button. It's just literally a button. So let's go add that in. So let's just say button, submit, and then button to close that. Oops. And then this we're going to get rid of. Okay. And so now let's refresh this bad boy here. Get doggo. We click that, nothing happens. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Basically, I wanted to show you the basics of CSS. For the next video, we are going to actually use JavaScript to invoke an API, application program interface, to then get a picture of a dog and post it right on our website. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.